Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to our first Pitch Wars mentor video chat of this season. All right, we have a couple people watching already. Thank you for joining us. So I'm just going to do a quick intro before I introduce our mentors who are waiting to answer all your questions. First, if you don't know anything about Pitch Wars and you happen to have found this by accident, you can find out more about Pitch Wars at our website, which is pitchwars.org. So Pitch Wars, just a real quick, is a mentoring organization where established writers and industry professionals mentor aspiring writers, and it concludes an agent showcase. You can watch this video and other videos if you're catching this not live. You can watch all the past videos, and all the future videos will be added to this link, which is bit.ly/pitchwarslive. So if you are finding this and you want to watch the rest of the videos later, they'll all be available there. All right, so if you want to ask a question, the best way to do that is via the YouTube page. So if you go ahead and click through to YouTube, the comments there are the best place to ask questions. If you ask a question on Twitter, our social media director, Lee Marr, will try to get that to us via YouTube. Oh, we already have a couple people. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to ask the mentors to introduce themselves. We're going to go one by one at first, and then you'll be able to see them all on the screen at the same time.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah.
Hi, okay, sorry. My name is Marianne Marlowe. I was a mentee in 2014, and I've been a mentor for 2015 until now. I write contemporary romance, and I have 3 books out with Kensington, Some Kind of Magic, Crazy Kind of Love, and my most recent is called Dating by the Book. And I'm really, really excited to be back again this year. It's such a great contest, and I look forward to getting lots of submissions for romance. Oh, sorry, adult. Not allowed to say. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Gladys. I'm mentoring adult as well. Well, this is an adult chat, isn't it? So I write speculative fiction and suspense. It's my first time mentoring, and I am a publishing student, so I helped publish a book last year. I'm an editor, and I've done a bit of mentoring with writers before as well. And so right now I'm interning with a literary agency, which has been really helpful. So I'll be able to give you some advice on how to submit to an agent, and what agents are looking for, what kind of rules you have to follow, etc. So nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Enzor. I'm an analytical chemist and a fantasy author, and my first book, Speak the Ocean, just came out just a little over a month ago in July. This is my second year being a mentor, and I'm very excited, and that's about it.
Hi, I'm Paris Winters. My first book is Hearts Unleashed. Sorry, just trying to figure out my camera. That was published by Crimson Romance before they closed down. I have 2 books coming out next year with Thule Publishing, and this is my second year mentoring adult. I'm a teacher during the day, I guess I should say, and I'm also a search and rescue canine handler.
Sorry, wrong layout at first. All right. Hello. So we have a lot of people saying hello. Let's see. I have to scroll so far up. That's how many people. So Sarah Jane is saying she's excited. So this is how YouTube,
Yay.
I'm just doing this to show you guys how YouTube comments are going to look when I show them up on the screen. Cal, smiley face. Melanie says, thanks for doing this. All right. So we actually have a first question. Hi from Ohio. How do authors who write literary fiction get an agent on Twitter Pitch? I see very few of them on pitch events. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. Hi. So I'm Sarah Nicolas. I am the managing director for Pitchwars this year, and I was a young adult mentor from 2012, the first year, all the way through 2017. And last year I was a social media director, and this year I'm the managing director, and I'm the author of Keeping Her Secret, which is young adult female romance. Yeah, so we'll get back to the question. So how do writers who get, so first I do want to clarify, because I feel like there might be a little confusion here. Pitch Wars itself is not a Twitter pitch event. We do run PitMad, which is a Twitter pitch event, but those are two different things. So make sure you go to the website pitchwars.org so you can read about the differences between those. But if we want to talk about literary fiction in Pitch Wars, do any of you have any info on that? The trouble is they're not allowed to say what genres they're accepting, so they can't say if they are accepting literary. But
well, I've stalked PitMad on behalf of my agency, and there is a literary fiction category. So I guess the answer is just to, research your subgenres and your genres. If you have literary fiction, hashtag it properly, so your agents who look can find you, because I've looked on behalf of the agency for literary fiction before.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, I will say, as a former book publicist, I think maybe the format of Twitter pitch events, literary writers are a little bit of a disadvantage, because it is harder to pitch literary works in such a short format. All right. So I'm going to try to just answer only like procedural questions, but if there's something that I feel like needs to be added, then I'll jump in. But I'm hosting all these chats. I'm going to try to talk as little as possible. All right. So the next question we actually have is also a procedural question. If there's no mentors looking for a new adult, how do I determine whether to submit to adult or young adult mentors? And the answer to that is on their wish list, they will have whether or not they are accepting manuscripts that are currently labeled new adult. And so when you look at their wish list, which go live on September 11th, you're going to be able to see who's accepting new adult and who's not. All right, so we have a question for everybody from Kira. As a mentor, what are you looking for in the first few pages of a novel? Whoever wants to jump in, go for it.
Voice. Voice will grab me, but I will say from last year, there were a couple of manuscripts that I ended up reading fulls from, where the first pages weren't as grabby, but when I moved on, just everything popped. The voice actually popped out. But I'd say voice for me was the one thing that right away I'd know, like, okay, hey, this is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a strong sense of character in the first page, so that I know who I'm following through the whole book. Because if I have no idea, if it's just, you throw me in the middle of a fight and I have no idea who I'm rooting for, I'm not going to want to keep going on to page 2 or page, 50 with you. But if there's a strong sense of character right on the first page, and definitely within the first 5 pages, then I'll want to continue following that character.
Yeah, I think the same for me. Character is really important, and also context as well. If you have a really, really, really vague kind of opening and you don't ground me in the scene, then I'm going to get really confused. And probably as a reader, you got to look from the point of view of a reader when you kind of look over your first pages. Does it grab someone who doesn't know what your book is about? Because you're going to be stuck in your head as a writer doing all your revisions. So you've got to kind of step back a little bit and say, if I was coming towards this from the point of view of someone who's never even read the blurb, just picked it up, am I going to be engaged with your writing?
For me, this is going to be a terrible answer because there's nothing you can do about this. But for me, when I look at the first pages, I try to find what I think I can fix. And the reason why voice is so important is because I can't fix somebody's voice, but I could maybe fix some other issues. But if there's a lot of problems with grammar or with other things, that's going to stand out in a negative way. I don't want to be copy editing an entire manuscript. So I want something that's both clean but also grabby at the same time. So make sure you polish it up.
All right. So before we show our next question, I just want to show Brenda Drake has stopped by. Does she want to say hello to everybody? Brenda Drake, if you are unaware, is the founder of Pitchwars. All right. So we have, right? I don't know how she did it for so long. Okay. This is another procedural question. They just announced DV Pit dates. Are we allowed to pitch in that event? I'm not sure what the dates are. I didn't see the announcement, but as long as you haven't been selected as a mentee, you can continue pitching your book pretty much anywhere if you want to. Once you're selected as a mentee, we ask that you not pitch during the editing process, but then after that, you can do whatever you want as well. And I think the only exception to that is things like Romance Writers in America, like the big contests at conferences that are. Brenda phrases this better than me, but if you're unsure, ask. But definitely, we ask that you don't do pitch events if you're selected as a mentee during the editing period. But if it's after our submissions and our mentors are still reading, you're still welcome to pitch, inquiry, and do whatever you want with yours. All right. Christina asks, hello, is it necessary to explicitly state the characters' ages? I write young adult, so yes, but everybody else here is adult, so.
Not unless it's, I mean, it's a good idea, maybe if you know what, yes, you can, but I whatever you want to do. if it's important. I mean, if you have a December May romance, that's definitely going to be important to the query. But you know, for adult, it's generally going to be in certain. Usually, it's around 28 to 37, right? And so, if you want to go older than that, it's probably a good idea to indicate it.
Yeah, I would say if it
as long as it happens, or sorry, Rebecca, go.
That's fine. I was gonna say if it's something that the plot depends on, like the Michael Mamet's Planet side, he's got a really older character, and the plot depends on the fact that he's almost retired and he's just doing this one last job, and then yeah, you want to know that he's an older guy. But for most adult plots, I don't think that the age is really that important.
And I was just going to say, you know, if you're going to work it in there, have it like come organically. There are ways to do that. I know some manuscripts I've read where you find the character's age maybe in the middle of the book, but you kind of have a sense already that, you know, they're at a certain place or maybe somewhere in their 30s. And then like on page 100, you find out maybe they're 34. It should just come organically and not feel like you're shoving it in there just so we get, you know, we know the person's age.
Yeah, I think what Paris said is pretty important. Just it doesn't really matter exactly how old they are, but it has to make sense. And, you know, as a reader, you'd have to be able to figure out kind of the age range and pinpoint, you know, whether or not that works for the plot.
All right. I did want to say, because I forgot to say at the very beginning, these 4 mentors are going to be with us until 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we have the second shift coming in. And so at 8 o'clock, we're going to be joined by Janet Walden-West, Kelly Siskind, Kina Roberts, and Farah Heron. So if you can feel free to re-ask these questions to those mentors again or ask new questions. All right, so the next question we have up is from Melanie Phillips. I revised my manuscript several times, but I'm now worried that my novel is too long for industry standards. Any advice? I will say just real quick, for people who are not quite sure what the industry standards are, I actually have that available. So if you go to my website, I'm typing out so you guys can see it real quick, sarahnicolas.com, like that. On the right side, there's going to be a link that says author basics, and right under that it says word count guidelines. But I'm going to let our mentors answer.
Can you just pop up the question again? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
I think it depends on how far outside of industry standards you are. If you're way far out, you're probably talking about cutting a subplot or a character. If you're just, a few thousand words over, you might go through and be able to actually hone it down. So it kind of depends.
Yeah, it definitely depends. I was waiting for you guys. Yeah, it depends on how much you're going over. If it's like majorly over, then you might need to look at how you're structuring everything. You might be able to find a point where you can split and say, hey, this is the next book, probably. We can move on from that point. There's a lot of ways. It really depends on, I guess, your specific manuscript, and I don't think I can answer much more than that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard without knowing the specifics of the book to figure out what it would need, whether it's just, word choices to make everything read smoother, which also has a tendency to make the book a little bit shorter, or if it's, too many characters, or, you don't need a romance subplot here, or it would definitely depend on the book. Mm-hmm. And I love long books. They have a tendency to run long in fantasy, so...
Get somebody to read over it and see what they think, like if there are any parts that are unnecessary, if they think it drags on for too long at some point, that might be a way to pinpoint where to work on. Get some outside opinion, I think.
I think it also depends too, like if you, and it's, again, I'd say like Rebecca, it's hard to say without seeing the book, but I've seen books where maybe somebody has like 7 or 8 different point of views in there, and really, maybe 3 are like the key people. If you have multiple point of views, that could be something to look at too. Like, is there somebody else you could save and maybe make a new book, or is there a subplot that comes from somebody else's point of view? So that's just something else to explore. And I was going to say on the opposite end, with, there are times that manuscripts are on the too short side. So that can be, something to look at too with character development and, world building and stuff like that. I know the question was more for the higher end, but I'm sure there are people who are who might have something more on the lower end. So setting, world building, aspects like with 5 senses you can look at to see if you can up your word count.
All right, anybody else? Okay, next question. This is one I'm actually interested to hear the answer. And Tim, asks, my novel is adult, but the first part of the book deals with childhood, teenage years of the protagonist. How can I ensure that agents/mentors don't think I mislabeled my MS and dismiss it?
That's a tough one. I actually, the first one I ever wrote, I alternated between teenage point of view and adult point of view, and that was exactly the problem I ran into with agents, where they weren't sure where it would be shelved. And then I had a manuscript that I mentored in my first year that started in high school and ended in college. And the way we dealt with it was we took the first part and we interspersed it, but not like alternating, but just as sort of flashbacks, background. So we backgrounded the earlier part of the story, so that it was definitely set at college, but then the young adult part wasn't dominating it that way.
I think it comes down to your voice as well, because young adult has quite a strong, young adult kind of voice. If you're going to submit it to adult, then maybe you need to kind of consider the angle of it. So, looking back on your teenage life, or because adult, yeah, the way you write is different, obviously, to a young adult. So, yeah, it depends on the language and the audience you're going for. So, yeah, that'll change.
I think there are adult books too that have younger characters, and I want to say, I don't want to botch this title, but is it Baby Teeth that has an actual young child? It's, I guess, more on the horror side. That is the main character of the book, but it's actually the voice and the way in which it's written that it comes off more as adult, and the themes within it too. So obviously, being a horror, it's kind of a little twisted of a book. I actually like it.
It's a pitchwars book.
It was, yeah.
yeah, it was. But it's more like murder and all this kind of stuff. That the voice and the themes are very adult, even though the character is a child. So that's another area that could be looked at too. Like if you're having the younger side, like Gladys said, what is the purpose of it, how are you approaching it, and the voice too, are you, that all can kind of make it stand out. I know one of the mentees I had last year, she had four POVs in the book. One of them was an actual 20-year-old character, and we just strengthened the voice and what we were looking at to make it more of an adult and not come off as a young adult. And she actually had that down pretty well, so we really didn't have to tweak that much of it, but that's something to look at too.
Sorry, I was just refilling my water. All right. So Sarah Jane has a question. She says, hi from Arizona. I've sent out queries before. Agents have said that they like the characters and the premise, however, always seem to pass. I have to say I'm nervous. Is there anything you can suggest?
That might just be their thing. Like there were so many, even last year when I was doing pitch wars, it was so hard to choose just one, and agents get so many more submissions than we do, and they can only choose a couple of them because they don't have time to work on everyone's books. So yeah, it's just, I'm not sure that there's anything that you can do about it. It's just their subjective, do I want to work on this for years, possibly with this author? Which isn't helpful, I'm sorry.
Right time, right desk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah. I mean, if you really love your book, just keep sending it out, but do your research, because many agents do pass on manuscripts that really don't fit their list. So I'm not saying that you do. Send out, dud queries. But a lot of agencies, they click off if it's something they're not looking for. So definitely hone in on the agents that have wish lists that fit your book. And yeah, just keep going. Don't give up, because it's a really, really tough process. But it'll be rewarding.
All right. And I always say too, make sure you're writing the next book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a real quick poll. Let's see. For those of you, is everyone here published?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay, that's right. Good.
I'm on the other side.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But which book that you wrote? Like which number, in the series became your published book? For me, it was the third.
9.
Oh,
It was my 9th book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hold up that many fingers.
Yeah, so I think that's something a lot of writers don't realize is most people don't get published with their first book that they've ever written. So, but you learn a lot writing each book.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
With that, my first book, which was my third book written, I published with Crimson, but I got my agent on my fourth book. So I had chose to do a small press, but I kind of went out of order. But sometimes that works too. So your agent doesn't always have to be the first book you publish. There are different routes you can take, too. So.
And on the same but different note, if you keep writing, you're going to have a backlog. I'm going out right now with my agent on submission with my second book, but I've published 3. So it's like all the books that I published came after that, but that book is sitting there and I've always loved it. It's my Pitchwars book. So. Aww.
And I did want to point out, for those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, there actually is some conversation going on in the comments among the viewers for some of the questions that have been asked. So make sure you check that out too. All right. Throwaway Beats asks, can I expect any mentors to have memoir on their wish list? So these mentors are not allowed to say whether or not they have it. They can't talk about their wish list until September 11th. But we did make sure that we had, especially adult mentors who are accepting memoir on their wish list. Whenever we did the selection process, that's one of the things that we look at, is what genres the mentors are accepting. And we actually have at least 2 adult mentors this year who have published a memoir. So Ruth asks a very difficult question. What are signs of good voice?
Wow. It doesn't sound stale. It's easy to read. It pops off the page, engages you. It's not cliched.
And you can have good voice that, let's say, I connect to that Rebecca doesn't, but it's still, a very voicey, good voice manuscript. At that point, it's just, there is subjectivity to it. You can say, hey, that's, amazing voice, but for me, I just didn't connect with it, where somebody else is gushing all over it. But I'd say, like Marianne had said, something that pops off the page, it doesn't feel flat. It's also unique. How my voice and Rebecca's voice and Marianne's voice and, Gladys too, we're all different. We speak different. The things that make us tick are different, that drive us are different, that we're passionate about are different.
Yeah, so it's full of character and even down to word choices, that all drives voice. So as long as it's full of character, I think that it'll be full of voice. You can tell I love character the most.
Same, but I would also like to add, for me, a good voice immerses me. So I don't want to feel like somebody's talking to me, someone's actually like reading out a story to me. I want the story to speak for itself. And I want to be able to like put myself in that scene. I'm a movie buff, so I want to be able to like look around and, see the characters, know them, know where I am, know what's happening. So immersion is really important for me. Just, paint a 360-degree picture of your scene somehow. Don't overdo it.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Thanks, guys. We have a question from a familiar face, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
Hi.
What do you look for in a prospective mentee?
Well, Dan was my mentee last year, and he was awesome. So I want another mentee just like Dan. He was very open to comments and suggestions. We did have to do a lot of work on the book, but he was actually awesome with it. If he had any questions, he came to ask me. He didn't just try to do stuff on his own, which I thought was awesome because, if you have a question, I'm here for it. This is the whole point of me is to answer your questions. And yeah, he worked really hard and, he did what needed to be done. So yay, Dan.
Anybody else?
I'll just say that I look for somebody like Rebecca said, who's open to criticism, to be able to take what they hear and not take it too personally. Hopefully, there's a lot of praise involved as well, so it's not just a total pylon. But yeah, I mean, somebody needs to be open to hear suggestions, and they don't necessarily need to take them all and just do them like a robot, but be open to feedback.
Yeah, I'm looking for. Oh, sorry.
Let us go.
No, you go first. You go.
I was just going to say, it's definitely somebody who's communicative. Both my mentees last year were, very communicative, and even if they didn't agree with something I had suggested, we talked about it, and we talked about why maybe something would work. Or I think some of that stuff opened up conversations to, they actually brainstormed something completely different, and then we were like, oh wow, yeah, that'll work great, how do we do this? So it's, while some of those areas that need improvement are there, sometimes it's not just go change it. You can have an honest discussion and listen on both. I listen on my end, they listen on their end, and sometimes we just try to see what works, and sometimes it's, oh, I see you said this, but this is what I was trying to portray, and then you kind of figure out, oh, okay, well, that's not what's coming across, let's see how we can fix that. But also I'd say somebody who's looking, who will put in the work too. It's not just that they're going to take something and kind of not do the bare minimum. We're here to help and everything, and we're putting, we want the best. I still talk to my mentees and ask them how they're doing every day and what they're working on next. I talk to Dan too, Rebecca. He's awesome. But
he's awesome.
He really is. But just somebody who is open-minded and wanting to work and communicates.
Okay, now I can talk. So, I mean, the word mentorship is a two-way street. So I'm looking for somebody who can contribute as well. It's just, it's not going to be just my input. Otherwise, I'll be like doing my own edits on you, which I don't want, which is what any good editor doesn't want, just to, impose themselves on somebody else's manuscript. So I'm looking for somebody who actually wants to improve their writing in general, so they can use these skills onto, their second, third book, whatever they're working on. So build up editing and writing skills in general to further their own writing careers, not just this manuscript that they're submitting. I don't want a mentor to be spoon-fed, because that's just not a fun relationship, and you don't really learn anything with me just dropping things on you. You got to be proactive and be willing to learn and grow as a writer as well.
Gladys, will you mentor me?
Sure.
This is what every year I'm like, what if I just submitted under like NARA sick list? Like they wouldn't know. All right. Okay, we have another question from Sarah Jane. I know grammar and spelling are important, but my manuscript isn't 100% perfect. Will it be passed on?
No.
No.
Okay. That was easy. We have a lot of questions, so we can answer things quickly. This is one that I can actually answer very quickly as well. From Claire, as most of the mentors are American, will English or Australian spelling be an issue? And absolutely not. I feel confident in our mentor selection process that we selected mentors who recognize that you're not just misspelling color over and over again. So that won't be a problem.
Australian. Hi.
Okay, going off of Marianne's answer earlier, Laura Rose Gold asks, for the other mentors, what kind of issues in a manuscript are you willing to work with, and which are you looking to stay away from?
I mean, I'm willing to tear apart a whole book and rewrite it if they think they can do it in time. So, like huge shifts and everything. I'm not looking to just change some sentences here or there in a book, because then you might as well query it, because I'm not great at sentences, honestly. But I'm great at structure. So if you have scenes that are near the end that should not be near the end, that need to be a little bit earlier, then we're going to do that. We're going to swap things around. We're going to move characters around, that sort of thing.
I'm the same way. I'm a big picture reader. I look for structural issues more than I look for anything else. Like I said earlier, I don't know how to tell you how to write your voice. That's going to be something you need to bring to the table. But if you bring me a manuscript that isn't working, the pacing is off, you have character arcs that disappear, all of that kind of stuff is what I like to work with.
Yes.
I like to nitpick, just putting it out there. So I would question basically everything. Like, why is this character doing this? Or, why is this scene happening? And I think, I'm looking, I would look for anything to fix as long as I like your premise and I think your characters or plot has potential. So don't really worry about it.
I'm the same. There's really not much that I wouldn't accept. I'd say the only thing I'm not the strongest on is, voice is very specific, but if there's any particular issues such as needing to age up a voice, that would probably, for me, I'm not strong at. But voice is so individualistic too, so that's not really something I think you can teach. It just kind of comes there.
And I want to say, because people always ask, like, how do you find your voice? And for me, it's something where I just kept writing, and I always consider it when I get into the weird. when things start getting weird for me, then I'm like, okay, I can't write that, can I? And then I'm like, yeah, why not? And that's the way that I sound, so I just go with it. And I think once you start writing for a while and you just let yourself let loose, I think sometimes if you just write for hours and hours and hours one day, you'll hit this point where it's just wacky. And sometimes you'll just find yourself in there.
I think for every book I write as well, the voice is different. So you don't need to find your voice per se. You just need to find the right voice for the right manuscript, if that makes sense.
All right, we have another procedural question that I can answer very quickly. Are synopses still going to be restricted to one page like last year? And the answer is yes. All right. Kelly is waiting in the wings. She's all right. So in about 20 minutes, you're going to see Kelly. Laura asks, do comps that were financial successes matter more in a pitch than comps that were critical successes?
You don't even need comps sometimes. So it just depends on whatever fits your manuscript more.
Yeah. My comps were movies. One was a documentary and one is a kid's movie. So I don't think comps matter that much.
Yeah, I think comps are like a shorthand. If they really help you explain your book faster, then comps are useful. But if you're just trying to find a comp, it's not going to be worthwhile.
I agree.
All right. Oh, this is going to be fun. Katie Dennis asks, what is your process for reading submissions? Do you read the pages if the query is so-so?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Try to read a bit of everything because, some first-timers, they don't have the experience of writing a query or a synopsis. So, you might be passing out on gems that are really, really, really strong, but they just don't know how to, pitch their work yet.
Yeah. Yeah, last year, even with 200 submissions, I read the query, the synopsis, at least the first page of everything. So just to make sure I wasn't missing something that, just because the query is, but the writing was amazing on some of them. they just didn't have those skills yet, and that's why I'm here, to help you learn the skills.
Exactly.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. We have a fun question here. Are elves cool yet?
Were they not?
Right? When did they not be cool?
Yeah, I thought they've always been a thing.
Sure.
Yeah, sounds like everyone's in agreement.
Put some shades on.
All right, another question from KD Dennis. I write romantic suspense, and I've seen wildly different suggestions for word counts. What range would you suggest?
I don't know.
I don't think it's that set in stone. It would depend on how much story you have to tell, really. But I'd sort of stick around the suspense ballpark.
Okay. Sarah Jane asks, my book goes to different POVs about the centered plotline. How do I go about querying that agents don't think I'm misrepresented? So basically, I think the question is, how do you query a book with multiple POVs?
I would say choose the one main point of view, because there's usually one character that stands out as the main character, even if there's a ton of different point of views. Like in Game of Thrones, there's like Jon Snow in the last season was like the main character, or Daenerys was the main character. That's what the whole thing revolved around, was those two characters. There were a ton of point of views, but those two are the ones that were really driving the main plot of the story. So I would pick one or two main characters that are driving most of the plot of the story and write the query and the synopsis around them.
Yep. And also I'd pinpoint what it is that makes the climax. So go backwards from your climax to find out like the sort of pathway that, you know, leads up to the big reveal and whatnot. That might help simplify it a bit.
That's a good tip. All right, we have a question from Frank, and you might have seen me like messing with my screen a little bit, and this is why. Frank asked, would gallows or dark humor from a middle grade main character be acceptable? All of the mentors today, right now, are adult mentors. And so that's why I was trying to pull up this schedule, which I'll show again at the end of the video. But our middle grade chats are going to be Saturday, the August 24th. And then we also have a Twitter chat on September 16th, and we have another video chat on September 20th. So make sure you tune into those, because you're going to be able to talk to the middle grade mentors then. Okay. I cannot pronounce this name, but they ask, hi there, is there any clear idea of a definition for a new adult as opposed to young adult or simply adult?
The way that I would define new adult is so you can say it's in an age range, but it's more about people that are young, that have left home, that are starting their lives for the first time outside of the home. They're learning to do new skills that you might like, kids who go to college, but not necessarily in college. Whereas young adult is kids, you know, growing up and learning how to become older people. New adult is like people learning how to become adults, if that makes any sense. And one of the things I want to point out, though, is that with new adult, it tends to be only romance, and didn't really take off with any of the other genres. So, and it's probably not taking off with romance either. So a lot of times you'll hear people say that you might want to think about aging up or down with a new adult book anyway, although I love to read them, so maybe there's a market.
That was great, Marianne. Jasmina asks, what are some tips for writing a one-page synopsis?
Beat sheet.
The Star Wars guide.
Oh, I haven't heard
Google Star Wars synopsis writing tips or something. There's a really, really fantastic guide. It takes the entirety of Star Wars and it lays it out in it's like these are the things you need to get to, from the inciting event to the dark moment all the way through, and you can just fill it in with your plot, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love the. I even brought it. Story engineering has a great section on structure, and it contains a beat sheet. And for me, at least, for my analytical brain, it worked perfectly. So I just fill out the beat sheet and the major beats on it, like the plot points, the pinch points, the midpoints. That's what I use in the synopsis. And as long as your one-page synopsis has those points, you're probably good to go. I love synopses, by the way. I'm so geeky. I'm such a geek.
I would suggest, if you haven't started yours yet, I would go and find your favorite books or favorite movies and try and write synopses for them, and then look them up on Wikipedia, because there's a plot summary, and kind of compare notes to see, if you got the important points. And then, like, once you've done a few, then I think you'll be able to get the hang of your own synopsis.
All right. So what I like to do, and it's kind of a diagnostic tool as well, is every scene or chapter, I'll write one sentence about what happens in that scene or chapter. And then I can go back and kind of, like, if I need a little more intro or like some transitions in there. But it also helps me identify if there are scenes or chapters that just aren't pulling their weight in the story as well. Because if I write the sentence, I'm like, that's not important, then I know, something's fishy there. So Cal asked a question about if the Corey doesn't sing, will you still read the first chapter? And we already answered that. So I think it was about 15, 20 minutes ago. So just go ahead and rewind. We are also running about 20 minutes behind of questions. So the questions we're answering now were asked over 20 minutes ago. So just FYI where we're at. Jasmina asks, what is the difference between upmarket, adult fiction, literary, and commercial? They're not throwing you softballs tonight, guys.
How do I explain? So commercial has basically very wide mass appeal, and literary, you'd probably be looking for like people who are really, really into literature, like really want to think about what it is they're reading, and upmarket is kind of the bridge in between. I hope that's clear-ish.
Yeah. The only thing that's ever made sense to me is commercial tends to be primarily about the story and the characters, and secondarily about the use of language, whereas literary tends to be the opposite, where it's primarily about the use of language and secondarily about the plot and characters. But that's not always necessarily true, but that's kind of a general summary.
I would also say that commercial tends to be genre, and genre usually has structures that you have to follow. For example, with romance, it has to end with a happily ever after, and a literary book does not. And I think that upmarket kind of falls in between, in that upmarket tends to be maybe genre, but also heavy on beautiful language, or maybe on heavier on thoughts. Not quite as fast moving as a commercial book would be.
All right. C.S. Simpson asks, my story is a slow burn, and I'm wondering if waiting until the 8,000 word mark to introduce the stakes is too long.
What stakes? If it's a romance, then I wouldn't worry about it. But if it's actually nothing really, really happens for 8,000 words, then I'd be tiny bit worried.
Yeah, you'd have to have tension at least.
Yeah.
Even if like the final stakes aren't there, those can come into play later, but you have to have tension to keep people reading, because if it's just
something has to
I
be
went to
happening.
class or whatever, or I went to work for 8,000 words, that's not tension.
You want to try to get your story as close to the inciting event as you can get. I don't know if that means stakes or not, but you want to at least have something happen early enough on that something in the world changes for the characters.
All right. Lee has brought us a question from Twitter. Lee Mar, by the way, is our Pitchwars social media director. So whenever you see Pitchwars tweeting, that is usually her. The submission window is 2 days. Is there any reason to rush to submit sooner than later in that window? Just from a procedural standpoint, yes, because we had some issues with verification emails not going through. And so if you leave yourself more time to check and make sure that it's been received, and then you have time to submit again. Whereas if you submit in like the last 2 hours, we're probably not going to be able to check in time for you to submit again if your submission didn't go through. But that's the only reason, I think. Right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Don't leave it till the last minute, because you're always someone's gonna have tech issues, and that's not gonna be nice.
I have stats on this. I don't know. I don't remember where they are, so I can't find them really quickly. But we did get like a couple hundred submissions in the last 2 hours. And I was just like, why? Why would you wait to the last hour? Okay, so we have a querying question. So when querying around, did you send out letters in batches, waiting for feedback, aka a request or a pass from the agents?
I rocket shoot them out.
I spike query, so when I get a rejection, I send another one out.
I batch mine,
Yeah.
but that's only because, like Marianne, I'm big on Excel and just the way I wanted to do it, and make sure I highlighted everything and plugged this in. It was just easier for me to send out in batches, and it also gave me some time to make sure like I self-cared. Instead of just sending, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I got some rejections, standard format, I'll send some new stuff out. So it always gave me something to look forward to. And then if there was something I needed to fix, I didn't feel like, oh no. But that was just personally for me.
Yeah, if you feel like your manuscript is ready, then there's nothing stopping you from doing it in batches.
I think I started with just like 10 or so, and most of them, they're taking the first chapter too. And so once I started getting requests, and I was like, okay, people are liking the query in the first 10 pages at least, then I sent out like a whole bunch at once. But if I hadn't been getting requests, then I would have gone back and reworked stuff, All right, so Kira asks, this is going to be a quick one as well. If a mentor is co-mentoring, who do I select when I submit? So on the form, it's going to have both names. So you can just go ahead and select, it'll say like if Marion and Paris were mentoring together, it would say Marion Marlowe and Paris Winters. All right. We have about 6 more minutes with these mentors. We have 3 mentors who are waiting in the wings to join us at 8 o'clock. Remus asked, can we submit more than one novel to different potential mentors? I got a YA space opera and an adult paranormal, and I doubt one mentor would want both. Definitely not. We only allow you to submit one book to Pitchwars. And if you do try to cheat it, our webmaster is really great at comparing IP numbers. So we did catch a couple people last year trying to game the system. So don't do that. Last year, from Caputo again. Last year, I saw some mentors hesitate to accept books they thought were fine already. How do you tell if a book is at that stage? And I think is the writer here, not the mentor.
That's harder because I can read someone's book and know that there's nothing that I can do to fix it, but they might have different skills. Somebody else might have different skills than me, and they might be able to fix something that I can't. So if there's nothing that I can do to fix it, then I'm not going to accept it, even if it's an amazing book. But I'll tell you, yay, I love your book, but I'm not going to accept it because there's nothing I can do to help you.
If it just involves a bit of proofreading, then yeah, I would probably pass it on and take someone else to mentor. But if it's, if it's got deeper issues, deeper things I can fix, like, characters, plot. But if I can fix those, then yeah, I would probably take you on. But if it's just tiny little things that you can fix yourself, then yeah, that's something you can do yourself.
Yeah, I think it's entirely subjective as well. So even someone who's reading it and saying, I can't see a way to improve this, another mentor may see an opportunity. So I would never tell someone like your book is 100% ready to go. There's nothing wrong with it, because maybe I just am not seeing. All right, so we have 4 minutes left. So I'm just going to let the mentors real quick tell me where we can find you online, and if you have any books coming out soon, or if you have any news you want to share, so that we have like a minute or two to switch over here. So Marianne, you want to go first?
So my website is mariannemarlowe.com. I'm on Twitter, Marianne Marlowe, all smushed together, one word. And I just did a cover reveal for a book I have coming out in the spring. If you want to check that out, I'd be really happy. Otherwise, good luck with everybody.
Gladys?
Yep, I'm mostly on Twitter. Gladys Quinn. I'm there all the time. And I have a character development game if you're interested. So me and my friends, King Katarina and Celeste Hart, we host #CharacterChaos. And it's supposed to be, loads of fun. You play as a character and you get to learn all sorts of things about them. So come and join us.
For me, you can find me at pariswinters.com, Paris Winters on Twitter or Instagram. Mostly I'm on Twitter. So yeah, good luck everybody. If you're on the fence, submit.
Yes, don't self-reject.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can find me at RebeccaEnzor.com, or on Twitter at RebeccaEnzor, or on Instagram at RebeccaEnzor. I made it easy.
All right, I am going to switch the screen over so you guys can see the upcoming chats while we switch over the mentors.
Am I the only one here? Can you hear me?
Just 1 second. The mentors are waiting in the ring.
Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Can you hear me?
All right, and we are looking for Kina. So if Kina, if you're watching. All right, Kina has joined us.
Hey,
So
can you hear me?
1 second, I'm going to get everyone on screen.
I was doing that too. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right, so we have a whole new set of mentors. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But real quick, for those of you who are just joining us, we already have a backlog of questions. So we're at 7:30 right now. We are answering questions from 30 minutes ago. So if we don't get to your question, make sure you join us on the upcoming Twitter chats and other mentor video chats. So I'm going to have each of the mentors introduce themselves real quick, and we are going to start with Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Siskind. I write fun, sexy, romantic comedy, contemporary romance, and this will be my 4th year mentoring in Pitchwars. I took last year off because things were a little bit crazy, and you can see that my space is super dirty, not dirty, like a little bit chaotic, but I also have booze in here, so we're all good.
All right, Janet, you're up next.
Hi. Let me see. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. All right. I'm Janet Walden-West. I'm a two-time Pitchwars mentee, but this is my first year as a mentor. And I will be doing it with Anne Raven. We're Team Subversive. And I write urban fantasy that sometimes has kissing in it and lots of kissing books, mostly contemporary romance. So,
Okay. Farah?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I'm Farah Heron. I write romantic comedy. My debut came out a couple months ago. It's my second year in Pitch Wars. I was a mentor last year, and I had 2 mentees, and I loved the experience so much that I'm back.
Okay. And Keena?
Hi, everyone. I'm Keena. And first of all, Kelly, I got booze too. So this is my first year mentoring Pitch Wars. I've mentored in a number of other programs before this. I also teach writing in my day job. I write science fiction and fantasy, although my debut book is coming out in November, which is a memoir. So Farah and I are actually in the same debut group this year, which is really cool. And yeah, I think I'm the lone non-romance mentor tonight, so send me your elves. I'm here for the elves.
All right. So just a reminder to everyone, our mentors and viewers included, they're not allowed to talk about genres. But you can tell by what they write a lot of time what they're going to accept anyway. So, okay. So we're just going to jump right in and get, Keena said sorry. It's okay. So we're going to jump right in and continue on with the questions we were doing earlier. Just a reminder, if you guys are going to type or if there's a background noise, you can just mute your mic and unmute it real quick. I'm constantly muting and unmuting mine. So, okay, so we have a question from Tim. Regarding queries, I've received conflicting information about the format. Should a query open with a hook or open with housekeeping items, John word count? And I will say real quick, as someone who read submissions, it does not matter.
No, personally, I prefer the hook, but I've seen it other ways and it works well. So it really depends on you and your preference.
I think agents have differing opinions on that too. So just work whatever works well for you. And I don't think anyone would ever reject a query because it doesn't fit their preference there.
No.
All right, Sarah Jane, we have a procedural questions. So for those of you just joining us, if it's like a procedural or like a statistics question, I just answer it real quick and we'll get on to the next question. So Sarah Jane asks, what's the soonest a mentee could hear back from a potential mentor as to whether or not they were picked? And so everyone finds out at the same time. So if you go to pitchwars.org, that's our website. You are gonna see the 2019 schedule all over the place.
That's when the website crashes.
No, it didn't crash this year. It didn't. Gail did a wonderful job. So our webmaster, by the way, in case you guys didn't know this, she actually hand coded the new website from scratch. So we're using like as few widgets as possible, which just makes it less likely to crash because it uses less bandwidth. Which is pretty amazing. So if you go to pitchwars.org, that's going to have the date on there for when the mentees are announced, and everyone finds out at that time, at the same time. Okay, we got a couple. Thank you. Nitpicking is super helpful. That was for Gladys. All right, so let's ask, as mentors, how would you address a manuscript that mixes one or two genres if one of them is one you don't usually enjoy / isn't on the wish list?
Anyone jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
Mixing genres can be tricky. It depends. I mean, execution is everything, and I think we'll all say that about a lot of questions. Execution trumps everything. Depends what genres you are mixing, and also sometimes, I mean, everybody who's in this contest is in it because they want to get an agent, want to get a book deal, and not necessarily because they want to self-publish. And sometimes mixing genres works against you. So it really depends what exactly is happening on the page. If it's working with the project and it's mixing a genre I don't normally read, but it's mixed with something that I love, but it's done well, then I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a personal preference, then that really doesn't matter as much as how well it works and what you're mixing. I mean, if you take two wildly different genres and try to smash them together, then that's going to raise some red flags just structurally. But if it's just a matter of presenting something that crosses boundaries, then I don't know why I wouldn't consider it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
feel
agree
like,
there too.
yeah, I like weird things anyway. So if you can sell it to me, heck yeah.
One of the things that I would tend to look at is whether you can sell it, not just to me, but elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Kelly
Yeah.
said, the point is to get a book deal. If I don't think that it's commercially viable, then even if I really love it, I might not be interested in taking it on, because I want you to have the success that you want out of the entire experience.
That's a really good point.
All right. We have another procedural question. If I have a prologue, do I include it with a chapter 1? And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and point you straight to our website, pitchwars.org, because that is a submission FAQ. So that is answered in detail on the website. So make sure you check that out. Okay. If a manuscript is this is from Claire. If a manuscript is a combination of 2 genres, should we pick a specific one to highlight in the query, or try to emphasize both? I will say we are changing the form a little bit this year. Last year, you were able to free enter your genre. But the problem with that is people want statistics on the genres that are entered. And when someone puts something in the genre field that's like paranormal romance with mystery elements and magical realism with LGBT elements, which is like not out of line of some of the things we received, it makes it impossible to do the stats. I know, because I do them. And so my one demand this year was that the genre is going to actually be a drop-down list, but that's the genre for the form. So you're going to have to pick a genre. And so just imagine like you're trying to pick where your book is going to be in the bookstore. It has to be in one place. So that's what you're doing there. But in your actual query, you can kind of dig down deep into the genres inside the query. But I will let the mentors go ahead and answer the question. If we're looking at the query and the manuscript seems to be a combination of 2 genres, how do they deal with that?
I would just pick the dominant one and then sort of go with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yep.
Yeah, your query is not a synopsis, so just pick your high point and put that out there for us.
And at that point, I think you also need to be open to changing it if after the mentor and you work with it and determine what the genre should be, because booksellers are always going to look at where it's going to be placed in a bookstore. So you kind of need to have a genre nailed down before we go to agents. But before that, I don't know if it matters as much.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a very similar question. For fantasy, is it important to narrow down the category magical realism, urban, or low?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, anybody that has been in the writing community very long knows that some subgenres are very popular right now, and some are going to be a very tough sell. So that is something that at least Anne and I would like to know up front, because it's definitely going to be something that the agents are going to consider.
Okay. We are going through these questions. Well, we have a lot of procedural questions, but Roland asks, is LGBT crime fiction too obscure to submit anywhere? And I just want to say that I'm very happy that we actually have some of the best writers who are writing LGBT crime fiction as mentors this year. So obviously we like them.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's too obscure, too specific.
No.
No, and it doesn't sound obscure at all to me.
No.
Done.
Yeah. Okay. This is a question from RR. We were talking about new adult earlier. And so I think this was a follow-up question to that is, aren't agents adverse to new adult? So if you guys could just talk for a second about the new adult market.
It's definitely not, a growing market at the moment. It had a heyday, which means like anything, it's going to be cyclical and will probably come around and be very popular again. But I think the issue with new adult is bookstores were not making a category for new. There was not a new adult shelf. And at the end of the day, book sales and what gets picked up, it's all about, you know, dollars and cents and where is it going to fit in a bookstore. And since all of that sort of kind of got a little bit blurred on the edges and they were trying to shove new adult into the different categories on the bookshelf, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So it's tough. I think a lot of us, so I know Heather and I, who are mentoring together, Heather Van Fleet, we were chatting that, you know, we are very open to new adult. We love reading it, but if we take it on, we might suggest to the mentee that they age it up to adult so that it becomes more saleable, basically.
Yeah, I think it's tough. In order to get something sold into the hands of a reader in a traditionally published market through a brick and mortar store, there are a lot of dominoes that have to fall of everyone who's enthusiastic about that book. And everyone is going to be thinking about it in terms of saleability at every single one of those dominoes. So it's not a never thing, of course. And I mean, if you look at what people are enjoying and reading about and wanting to read about on Twitter or whatever, new adults, great. Lots of people love it. There's a market. There's people who shockingly are new adults who want to read about people like themselves. But you know, the will doesn't necessarily mean that everyone on every one of those dominoes is going to be as enthusiastic. So it sucks maybe sometimes, but I think thinking about it that way is going to sort of protect a lot of people in the process, and maybe you know, you might make a decision that might be ultimately more beneficial to your book.
I agree completely.
Go ahead.
No, I agree completely. I think the big piece of the puzzle that people are missing out on there is the retailers are really making the determination. It's not agents that don't like it. It's the retailers don't know what to do with it, which is what Kelly said. And so the agents are really just following along with what the retailers want. Well, what the publisher is doing, what the retailers want.
Yep.
All right, I have a comment from Dan I just wanted to show real quick. If Rebecca is your mentor, learn to love the beat sheet. We were talking about beat sheets earlier, so I think we have another follow-up question here. Remus says, is the beat sheet available anywhere? Is it for purchase? So most people, when they're referring to the beat sheet, they are referring to Save the Cat, which is a book for screenwriters that is also translated into novelists, and that is available online, so you can search for it. But I do recommend reading the book so that you understand what that means, what each thing means. Let's see. Okay, Sarah Jane asks, this is my first year ever doing Pitch Wars. I wanted to know, are we still able to do the upcoming Pit Mad? I know we can't query while doing Pitch Wars, so why do Pit Mad beforehand where agents see it? You are allowed to do Pit Mad, so I just want to clarify that. But I would like our mentors to comment on the factors that might go into your decision on whether or not to do Pit Mad if you are planning to submit to Pitch Wars 19 days later.
If I would say, if you are looking at Pitch Wars, you are looking at working on your manuscript. It is not ready to query yet. That is what you are asking for help with, and what hopefully we can help you with. Whereas if you're doing Pit Mad, I would assume that your query is ready to go out the door, your manuscript is ready to go out the door. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to get another pair of eyes before you put your manuscript in front of an agent who you might really ultimately want to represent your book. So why waste the opportunity? And if you don't get in, you would be querying them anyway. So
I'll also add that everything in publishing is super slow. So even if you get like a bunch of interest,
is it Kelly? Really?
It could be. Yeah, really. You could be months out waiting. You know. So at the end of the day, I think it's more beneficial that if you really want to do Pitch Wars, you're doing it for a reason, and that's to get extra eyes on your work and really push it that last mile.
All right. Yes, I agree with everything y'all said. I do feel like a lot of people that have the best experience as a Pitch Wars mentee are people that go into it knowing that their book is close, but they need something. They need a little extra help, and they're not quite sure where to go with it. And so if you're at that stage, then I don't understand why you would be pitching in PitMad if you acknowledge that. We were talking earlier about the Star Wars synopsis, and so Ray said the Star Wars synopsis is a post by Susan Dennard for people who are looking. She has great resources on her website as well, so I recommend all the things that she has on her website. So we have a question about wish lists, and I am sorry, but these. Oh, what is that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, so the mentors are not allowed to answer wish list questions until the wish lists go live on September 11th. So having said that, we have all these Twitter chats happen after the wish lists are revealed on September 11th. So after those are revealed, I would definitely recommend you check out these so you can ask, clarifying questions about wish lists.
Just in case anybody.
I do actually. That's pretty true. Carl wants all the dino porn.
Oh, I can't wait for Pitchwars Trash Talk. That's my favorite thing. Okay.
Don't trust a rom-com writer.
She's just sticking that on her forehead. All right, Ruth asks, some agents request a bio in their submission guidelines. If you have a little writing-related experience, what do you recommend putting in there? If you have little writing-related experience, sorry.
So I would say if you're part of any organization, if I'm a romance writer and I'm part of RWA, I would say I'm an active member of the RWA community. And yeah, you just keep it short. It's okay. Lots of writers don't have writing experience. So if you can become a member of some kind of, organization that, was part of what it is that you are writing, the genre you are writing, then I think that's a bonus for you.
Yeah, I mean, if agents ask for something, you have to include it, even if it's just something minimal. I don't think, I mean, that if it's little, then, lots of writers don't have a lot of professional experience when querying, and that's okay. But always, if they ask for something, you've got to include it.
I was just actually having a conversation with a writer at my library last night, and she was saying she was looking through some of our query writing resources on the Pitchwars site, and she didn't realize that statements like, I've been writing for this long, or that kind of thing, weren't really a boon to your query. So it's not that they're bad, they're just like not, a positive thing to add. But if you have any experience with organizations like Kelly mentioned, or if you belong to a writers group or something like that, that's something I would mention. All right, Ricky has a question. Will the wish list be available earlier than the 11th? Absolutely not. And if they are, some mentors will be receiving a phone call from me. All right, Laura asks, for mentors that have mentored before, about how many full manuscripts have you asked for in the past after reading through all the submissions?
Yeah. I don't remember.
Last year I think I requested maybe 12. Maybe 12. I didn't read them all incomplete. Didn't read them all completely, but I requested that many.
I think that sounds about a good ballpark for me as well. Somewhere that, and I won't, just because I request a full does not mean I'm getting through the full. But if at some point I'm realizing there's a disconnect on some level, I won't finish it. But yeah, maybe around 12-ish.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Sarah Jane asks, is Pitchwars more to help people ready their books or more to help them get an agent? And so we are stressing very much the past 2 years that the primary goal of Pitchwars and the primary value in Pitchwars is the mentoring experience. The agent showcase is nice, but it's the most public part of Pitch Wars, but I think it's kind of like an icing. It's not the point. Anybody else want to add?
Yeah, exactly. I have done Pitch Wars twice as a mentee, and my Pitch Wars crew from 14 and from 17 were really active on Facebook and on daily chats. They are a great resource, and so are both of my mentors. You know, they're still willing to help. It's about community. It you know, more so than just getting an agent and getting a deal.
Yeah, one thing I have a bit of a sort of straight talk with my mentees when I start, and that's this business is tough, as we all know, and this is not a golden ticket. It is the bulk of it is to learn. It's a journey. You are going to improve your writing skills. That is a given if you get picked to be part of the contest. And yes, it's wonderful to get an agent. That's what everybody wants at the end of this deal, but it is not a given. And, at least you're getting tools and you're growing as a writer and you're meeting awesome people. Janet and I were in the same first Pitch Wars.
Yes.
We were mentees the same year.
Yeah. So the community really is the best part. And we'll just warn you that if Anna and I pick you, you'll never get rid of us. So.
Oh gosh. Janet wants all the My Little Pony manuscripts.
Any theme?
No,
My Little Pony.
No wish list.
Yeah, I can't confirm or deny that. So.
Kira asked this in the first hour, and I told them that they could ask a question again if they wanted to make sure that the second batch of mentors answered it. So, as a mentor, what are you looking for in the first few pages of a novel?
I'm going to say the same thing everyone does. Voice. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
It's one of the things that really stands out and will pull people in.
Yeah, if I'm not sinking into your story in the first couple pages, I mean, the ultimate goal is to make someone want to read more, right? And then more, and then more. So, capture your reader.
Yeah. Yeah, if the voice, people get confused by what voice means, and that is, if the personality of your character jumps off the page, you feel connected to the character and what the character is going through. And that's the best thing you can do as a writer, is to have readers relate to your character and want and care about your character. And I think a lot of that comes down to voice.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
All right. Lee has brought us a question from Twitter. Are chosen manuscripts transferable based on extenuating mentor circumstances? So this has only ever happened a couple of times in history of Pitch Wars, where a mentor was in a situation where they couldn't continue mentoring, usually like health related or like family emergency or something like that. And we do our best to find someone who can like fill in for them. We have people who are ready to go on certain things. Like I know if it's middle grade or young adult, Brenda is ready to jump in with an extra mentee at any time. If it's young adult, I may be able to step in. We have people for several different categories and genres who are able to step in, as long as there's some match there, right? So that does happen sometimes, and we are usually able to cover that if it does happen. Carrie asks, can mentors have more than one mentee? And so for those of you who haven't been around Pitch Wars for a while, mentors are only allowed to choose one mentee. However, we have a limited number of what we call wild cards every year, where a mentor can ask to have a second mentee and they are drawn randomly. And we have been the past year and this year, the plan is also to compensate for categories or genres. So last year we saw a huge jump in adult manuscript submissions versus the previous years. So we weren't quite prepared for the number of adult submissions. So last year we gave all the wild cards to adult mentors so that we could kind of even out the odds there. This was from the earlier chat, but someone's very excited about. Oh, that was when Kina came in. Yeah, that was right.
I broke the rules, but now
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Oh, goodness.
Wait, no, this side. Wait, I can't do it. There we go.
All right. Kristen asks, will you have a word count limit for your submissions? Will you pass if it's a bit high? I'm assuming. We did talk about word counts a little bit ago, so make sure you rewind and watch that, but I will let these mentors go ahead and answer that question.
As a romance mentor, yeah, if it's way out of the range of what I think I can work with, I would pass, because in the short amount of time to do major rewrites to bring it within the industry standard. But if it's a little bit over, like 10,000 words over, then I would probably, and it was great and everything else was kind of lined up, I would probably take it.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. If it's out of whack completely, then we just don't have the time to wrangle that in. That's like a massive rewrite. I mean, I think some historical maybe has a little bit more leeway for some space, but contemporary and other stuff, publishers want to see it within a very certain range, and if we can't get it into that in a short period of time, it's not the best fit for the program.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you should have a general idea for your genre, what is acceptable. And if you are way outside of that, you're probably looking at something that's more along the lines of a structural problem. And like Kelly said, that's going to be like major rewrites, and you probably just would not have the time to do it, the time we have allotted.
That's a really good point, and I would agree, because if you're querying an agent, they want to know whether you understand the genre well enough to know what the appropriate word count is, especially if you're a debut author, because every page is more money that a publisher has to put into printing your book, and it's a less easy sell if your manuscript is a lot longer. That doesn't mean it's no, because there are exceptions to every rule, but staying within your genre word count is an indication that you get it and you understand what's going on in your genre, and you've kind of put in the time to understand what that means from a business perspective.
All right. We have a question from RR. If you have submitted your manuscript to multiple agents already, so should you submit the same manuscript to Pitchwars?
So in the past, I have seen writers who have been in the querying trenches for a while and have submitted and gotten chosen for Pitchwars. It doesn't mean it is. A lot of agents are willing to reread something if they've gone through this process. Pitchwars, has quite a bit of credibility behind it at this stage. They know how hard we're working with you on these books, so people are willing to reread if possibly they were interested but didn't connect, or there was a reason why they passed. I would not pass up on a manuscript if it had been queried widely, if I greatly connected with the manuscript and saw how I could help it.
Yeah, I agree. Because I'll admit, the first time that I did Pitchwars, I had no clue what it was or what I was doing, and I had already started querying, and my mentor took pity on me, so I have a soft spot.
Yeah, and also if you've been submitting your manuscript to agents and they've given you some substantive feedback that involved a big rewrite, and you're working to make sure you've addressed some of the current feedback you've gotten, then that's great and normal and good, and I'd be more than happy to look at that, especially if it's been a big change.
All right. Brenda has a message for Kelly. Website crashes are so 2017.
So true.
Okay. We have a lot of questions about word count, but I feel like we've covered that pretty extensively here. So I'm going to skip over the rest of those, just a FYI. I'm scrolling through comments, sorry. All right, Ruth asks, I've seen agents say they like personalized queries, and others say it's just a sign that you took 10 minutes to Google them. What are your opinions? And I will say for pitchwars specifically, you cannot personalize queries to mentors. We ask you not to do that. But this is about agents, so I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to the mentors.
I would say that. Go ahead.
I honestly don't know what agents prefer. If they, I think they prefer personalized, but I think that's a better question for ask an agent.
I think if the personalization is authentic, like there is something specific, you saw a manuscript wish list and I saw you ask for this, and that's what my manuscript is, definitely suggest it. You know, if they said they went to eat lunch at this bagel place and you're like, oh my God, I love bagels too, I probably
No, that's creepy.
Yeah, there's a creepy line on it. Yeah, if it can't be personalized with meaning, then don't personalize, I think.
Yeah, and if you follow agents at all to kind of see what they do like, what they're looking for anyway, you'll figure out the ones that really, do want something personalized and the ones that are just like, get to the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sarah Jane asks a procedural question. What would happen if we get picked by 2 mentors? That is where the war in pitch wars comes from. So basically what would basically what would happen is the 2 or more, I don't think it's ever been more than 2 mentors who want to be your mentor fight over you in a very civil way, of course. And so they basically
set up a ring and they put a bunch of
yeah. And now that we have the live streaming platform, we just put it on here.
Yeah, Kelly's the referee, so
yeah.
So no, what really happens is they send the mentee a short pitch basically about why they should choose them as a mentor, and the mentee gets to choose at that point. So all right, we have a wish list question that I'm not going to put up.
Kelly has thoughts.
I got
Kelly's ready. It looks like someone put the Save the Cat beat sheet in the comments, so make sure you go and check that out. I don't think it shows links in this chat, so if there's a link there, we won't see it. All right. In terms of building I'm going to show it to you guys. And Tim says, in terms of building an overall writing career, how important is it to stay within one genre for purposes of your brand? Is it a bad idea to jump between very different genres?
So my debut is a memoir. And I have no intention on writing more nonfiction. The other books that I've written are in a very different genre. And that's just a matter of personal preference and what I was able to pitch and sell. But I think that when you have a mentor or when you have an agent, one of the things that they're going to do is talk to you about the long-term growth of your career and how you can manage to build a brand that makes sense across careers. And there's another writing group I was in, we were talking about this recently, and a lot of the times that's done with sort of what we were calling bridge books, or books that are kind of multi-genre and can sort of create a path between X and Y without it being a complete jolt to your brand. So, for example, my book takes place in a remote area of Botswana and Africa. It's nonfiction. My fantasy takes place in the same place. And it's about a lot of the same elements that were in my first one, but it makes sense for that book to sort of occur in the same place, even though it's in a very different genre. And that's something that you can talk about with your agent in a way to kind of weave a path with some common elements that are more your brand than the actual genre itself.
I'll also add that, so I've written romance, and that's sort of how I've been published so far. I do have a women's fiction book I've recently written that's on submission now that branches off differently. I think for some people who eventually get into, I think it's important to build a brand if you're starting in one direction, but there's nothing wrong with writing outside your lane, but there are to consider. The agent you signed with might not be an ideal agent for that genre. You might end up, changing tracks later on or making different choices because of the direction you want to go in. If you know out of the gate that you want to do 2 different genres, it's important you find an agent that is open to both. And not just one, because that's going to affect, how you go on submission and all that stuff in the future. So it is, if it's something that's important to you, I think it's something to be aware of and how the choices you make going forward.
And I think with branding specifically, if you create your brand with your readers. So if you've got 2 very differing genres, you'll have 2 different groups of readers. So you might
That's
see
true.
branding.
And possibly a different pen name.
Yeah. You can't, just because it's the same writer, you will find that readers will not move with you if you write a different genre, even if they love you in one genre.
Yep.
All right. Laura said thank you all for taking your time and answering her questions. All right. This person asked, should our query letters be traditional as if we were querying agents, or are there ways that should be adjusted to help prospective mentors get a feel for the project? So I will say, just from the top level, what we expect is a query letter as if you're querying an agent, and that is what is expected. But I'm going to let the mentor see if they have any opinions about it.
I'm kind of afraid to say, send us something innovative and strange.
Definitely just a straightforward query letter. Just the meat of it, of what you would send to an agent. That's what I would want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as practice for querying agents. So why would you take it too far away from that?
I have seen in the past some hopefuls have submitted in their query letter things that they think that might need work on the manuscripts, and I don't think that worked for them quite the way that they thought it would. Because if I disagree with you, that's an automatic no. All right, this is gonna be a fun one. It's for a specific person, but I'm actually gonna ask everyone. Any good podcasts to recommend?
Wow, I don't actually listen to podcasts that much. I like the Smart Bitches one, and I think that's really the only one that I listen to, and not even that much. My husband's into some advertising podcast, which he loves.
I'm not a podcast person, so don't ask me.
I like Writing Excuses. I think that's a really good one, especially for if you're working in fantasy. I think Print Run Podcast has a lot of good information about the industry itself. There was a really good episode we were discussing in the debut authors group about pre-orders and what that means in terms of saleability, which was very interesting. And then if you want to just sort of commentary on what it's like to be a writer, I mean, Write or Die podcast. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts when I cook, but I just go through one podcast, straight through, until I catch up, and then I go back. But I was going to recommend Print Run because I'm really enjoying that. That's something I think I'm in I don't know, 2017 right now, but I've been listening through them because originally I thought it was a podcast specifically for querying writers because the 2 people who do it are literary agents, but it's not. They cover all kinds of publishing news. So I think it's valuable for anyone. There's going to be some stuff that's basic if you know more about the industry, but there's still, I think, a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, you pick up lots of different things, and especially since they're industry professionals in a different part of the market, it's really useful information. Yeah.
And then the one's not specifically writing related, but I recommend it to pretty much anyone who says the word podcast in my general area, is Hidden Brain by NPR. It's about the hidden biases that make us make the decisions that we do. And I think it's just a great tool for a writer to have in their back pocket to think about the secret motivations that people themselves may not even be aware of. So
that sounds fantastic.
It's great. I love it. I have a Hidden Brain t-shirt. I'm a big fangirl.
I like the idea of listening to it while you're cooking.
Yes. Yeah. they sent me, I had mentioned it on Twitter, and they were like, hey, we want to send you some things. And they sent me these little brain gummies. So that was fun. All right. We have a question from a person. I'm due to give birth to my first child in December. Would it be unreasonable to enter pitchwars?
That is a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
I've never been pregnant.
I've had 2 kids. That's a lot.
That's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
A lot.
That would be really tough. And if you still feel you want to do it, more power to you.
Yeah. Can't call it crazy because you know better than anyone else your own capabilities, but you know, yikes.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone just kind of cringed and
Yeah. I mean, I started writing when I had my first child, and I tell everyone that it was like sleep-induced insanity or lack of sleep insanity because the kid was up every 15 minutes. But I was also only writing for myself. I did not have, any sort of deadlines. I didn't have to worry about anyone else's deadlines or an agent showcase or anything like that. So don't give up, but maybe don't do pitchwars this year.
Just think about it really hard before you.
Yeah.
there's always next year too.
It'd be much easier with a toddler. No, probably not.
No.
Probably not.
All right. We have a question from Twitter that Lee is bringing us. For those of you tuning in, Lee is our social media chair. She's the person who mans the @pitchwars account. So she's sending us over questions that are asked on Twitter. How do we make the most of this pitchwars opportunity?
Make friends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Swap, chat with people who are planning to enter, swap queries, and chat and get to know people. And you might find a critique partner in the process. All of my current critique partners, everybody I work with, are pretty much 95% all through my pitchwars years.
Yep.
It's
That's how Ann and I met. And it was right before pitchwars when someone had set up, swap queries. Are you looking for a critique partner thing? So jump right in.
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo that. Even if you don't, so a lot of people think of pitchwars as the mentoring process, and you get chosen and you participate in the agent showcase. But even if you're not chosen as a mentee, I still think it can be a really valuable experience because all the mentors put out so much advice during the period before submissions open, and it's also a great way to meet other writers as well. Brenda had some comments on the pregnancy questions. I'm just going to show those real quick. My mentee had a baby during revisions for pitchwars. She said we worked around it. And then she said, Kara is amazing. It was our pitchwars baby. Some of the podcast recommendations from our listeners. 88 Cups of Tea. I've heard a lot of recommendations from that one.
Also a great one.
And Pub Crawl podcasts. All right. Kira asks, how many submissions do mentors get on average? Is it like a 1 in 100 chance to be picked as a mentor or as a mentee, I guess? So I did cover this on our test chat, which was from the other night. But just in an overall perspective, we determined, so there were about 4,200 submissions last year, unique submissions, and 116 slots, sorry. And so that roughly amounts to about a 2.8% chance, right? Yes.
That sounds right, yeah.
I'll rely on your math.
Yeah, sure.
I did the math. I'm just trying to remember what it was.
I think I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
Yeah. But I'm going to let the mentors or the people who have been mentors before talk about what have your inbox looked like in the past.
For me in the past, I've been pretty specific about what I want. And so I think my, submissions have been a little bit more manageable. I am going a little bit wider. Heather and I have decided to go a little bit wider this year with some of what we want. So I imagine it is going to get larger. So yeah, I think I sort of ranged in the 50 to 60 range my first few years, but I have a feeling this year it will be a little higher because of what we're accepting.
So I had 160 last year, which was my first year doing it, and I got a wild card slot, so I had 2 different mentees, so 160. Unfortunately, I had to say no to 158 people.
Yeah, it can definitely vary widely depending on the wish list and the mentor. We have some who get, like 30 or 40, and they still find one that they love to mentor, and we have some that get 300 or more. So, all right. Krish Kreishel, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this, says, thank you for your time tonight. I'm in the YA category, but enjoy any advice for writing in a writing career. And I wanted to mention that because I was saying, even if the chat is not specifically geared towards your category, I still recommend you check them out because there's still a lot of advice that's applicable no matter what your category is. So make sure you check out all the chats that you can because everyone's sharing some really great advice. Laura asks, oh, this is a fun question. What are some of your favorite books that have come out of Pitch Wars? I got some, if you guys want.
I've done so many, it's hard.
Yeah, I kind of froze.
I don't know.
I'll say Kelly's and Mary Ann's, both.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look at the bookshelf.
I know. For me, sometimes it's hard to remember like which was a Pitch Wars book and which was by a person who's involved. Oh my goodness!
Get out of here. I've got a few that are just like these are all Pitch Wars books. Just have
nice.
on my desk. This was my mentee. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, she's in our debut group too. That's awesome. Yeah.
Megan, do a little boost for her. Her book's awesome.
It is totally awesome.
I really enjoyed let's see. I'm trying to remember was this a Pitch Wars book? The Helen Hong's book?
Yeah, I think
the first one. Yeah, it was, right?
The Kiss Quotient.
Yeah, the Kiss Quotient. I love that one. And I just got the second book on audio, so it's on my phone right now. And I mean, is it cheating to say like one of my former mentees? It is cheating. The Frost
yeah.
I also really like The Disasters by M.K. England. That's one that I almost chose to mentor, but someone else wanted it, so I let them have it. And Kelly Garrett's books, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? One day I'm going to put together a list of books that have been through Pitch Wars, but I don't know when that day is going to be. All right. Sarah Jane has a question for Janet. Janet, you've mentioned you've been a mentee for 2 years. What advice can you give to mentees? Or I guess potential mentees?
Probably the most important thing is don't self-reject. Go for it. You don't have anything to lose. And build your community. This is a great way to do it, whether you get in or not. That would be my best advice. And if you do really want to do this, be prepared to work.
Yeah. Laura actually commented something at the perfect time that kind of adds to the discussion. She says, all the critique partners I've worked with so far, I've met through Pitch Wars. That's cool.
It's invaluable.
All right. Tim has a question. How important is having a social media platform for a first-time fiction author?
No, I don't think it's important.
Not important.
Not yet.
Yeah, I will say for Pitch Wars specifically, I think a lot of people think it's important, but it's really not. A lot of my mentees, if they had a social media account, I didn't know it before I chose them. So
Yeah, the first year that I did Pitch Wars, I had literally been on Twitter for like a week, maybe.
Same.
Yeah.
All right, Professor Plaid, which is a cool name, has a question. What research do agents and publishers use to determine future market trends, genre styles, essentially what's marketable, and how might writers keep up to date on those trends as well?
If anybody knows that, I would love
Yeah.
Yeah,
to know.
please share with us.
Yeah. I mean, I could say everything is cyclical. Things die out, things come back. When I started, romantic comedy was not hot. Now it's like the thing that publishers want. I mean, the problem is if you're writing right now for what's hot right now, by the time your manuscript is ready and you're querying it and a publisher's looking at it for what they're going to publish in 2 years, it's probably not hot anymore. Write what you want to write, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember how long it takes between to get your book out, and the world's a different place when that happens.
I don't even think agents necessarily know what's hot. They're kind of throwing things at the wall and see what sticks. I'm not sure anyone along the process really knows what the next trend will be.
Yeah, I think I mean there's always a guess, but there's no like sure way of knowing. And so you can make educated guesses the more you know about the market. And so the way that you can kind of see some of the upcoming trends is by, well, watching the deal announcement. So that's what it's getting sold right now, though. So if you're like trying to write to that, you're not going to be able to do it unless you can write an amazing book in a couple weeks, because it's going to change. But another thing that I like to do sometimes, and this is maybe just because I'm a voyeur, but I like to watch PitMad and see what pitches get like the most requests, because that gives me an idea of like what agents are hungry for. And I have an agent, but I just like to know. So yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just talking to people who like to read. What are they thirsty for? What do they like? What aren't they seeing that they'd love to see? I mean, obviously that's not necessarily indicative of something that you can sell, but it gives you a sense of what people want.
Yeah. All right. We have actually run out of questions, it's just about perfect timing because I have one last question for you guys, and then I'm gonna let you go. But it's kind of a two-part question. So one, what are some of your favorite writing craft books or resources, even if they're not books? And also, what books that are fiction do you think are a good one to study and to learn from?
No
pressure.
Go ahead. I touched on craft books a little bit earlier today, I think. And I am really bad about picking up craft books and then never opening them. So I usually go for blogs, things like Fiction University, Jamie Gold's blogs, something like that. And if you're on a budget, those are especially great.
Yeah, I would put another plug in for the Writing Excuses podcast. I learn a lot listening to that. I also learn a lot watching what intelligent people say on Twitter about writing and some of their threads. Delilah Dawson is a great person to follow for that. I learn a lot from what she has to say. In terms of tools, we've already talked about a couple of them, but I live and die by spreadsheets. Beat sheets, spreadsheets, because I like to have everything in place before, everything else fills in the gaps. So, yeah, I would say Writing Excuses, Delilah Dawson are some of my favorite resources.
You mentioned Save the Cat before. I'm a big fan of Save the Cat. That was my first book on plotting that really helped me develop, structure in a book. And I love the Emotion Thesaurus. And
that's a good one.
It's handy for me. It's not that I use exactly, you know, stuff that they have in there, but it just helps me kick me out of a rut. Like I can sense sometimes when everybody has, you know, ticks that they use when they're writing and action tags and stuff like that. You know, oh God, they smiled again. Stop smiling. So, you know, it helps kick you out of a rut, I find. Just gets you thinking differently.
Yeah.
For me, I had my mentees last year read Romancing the Beat, which is a beat kind of, she took the beats from Save the Cat and made them specific to romance. And it's a small book and you can read it really quickly. And I find I refer back to it over and over again to getting the beats in the right place. So that book, and probably The Emotion Thesaurus too. I love that one.
All right. If you're writing commercial fiction, I really like Donald Moss's books. Writing the breakout novel is probably one of my favorites. But that's like at a very like commercial craft level. Like I don't know if I'm describing that right, but it's how to make readers like turn the page, basically. All right. So if our mentors could just let us know where you can find us or where we can find you online. And also if you have anything coming up that you want to let us know about, like any giveaways or a book coming out or something like that. Kelly?
So kellysiskin.com, Kelly Siskin on Twitter, Kelly Siskin on Facebook, just my name everywhere. My last release was New Orleans Rush. That came out in April. And I do actually, just for this month, so to the end of August, my original Pitchwars novel that I got into Pitchwars with, Chasing Crazy, is on sale now for $1.99 through to the end of the month. So yeah, if that sounds fun to you, if you want to escape on a backpacking trip to New Zealand, it's fun.
Yes.
For $1.99, you can't beat that.
All right. Same for me. Everything is Janet Walden-West. I'm also up every 6 weeks at themillionwords.net, which is another craft blog for those of you that like your craft in small bites. And my debut, Salt and Stilettos, which was my 2017 Pitchwars manuscript, will be out this spring.
Yay.
Yay.
Keenan?
So you can find me at Keena Roberts on all the places that we go. I'm a lot on Twitter, so that's where you're most likely to find me. My debut, which I have an arc of right here, is coming out in November. So if you're interested in the real life Mean Girls, because Tina Fey stole my life, and this is the real version of what happened, it's coming out in November. If you're interested, you can check it out. And yeah, thanks for everyone for the questions, and I'm really excited to see what everyone has to say. Oh, and good luck. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So I'm Farah Heron on Twitter, farahheron.com, Farah Heron author on Instagram. My debut was The Chai Factor, and it is on the poster behind me right there. I can't point on the right side. There. And it came out in June in Canada and then in July in the US. And I don't have anything else coming out for a bit, but my next one will be with Forever Romance, hopefully soon.
Cool. All right, and I am Sarah Nicolas. You can find me on Twitter at Sarah_Nicolas. I think Lee has been tweeting about us a lot, so RIP your mentions, ladies. SarahNicolas.com and President Sarah on Instagram. And I will be doing nothing but managing Pitchwars for the next couple of weeks. So I don't have anything else right now. All right, so I'm going to put up the schedule of the upcoming chats while we get all these mentors home, or I guess you're already home, but off the chat. So thank y'all for joining us. Thank you for the mentors for joining us, and also for everyone watching. All right. Okay, so thank you everybody who joined us. These are the upcoming Twitter chats and also video chats. I do recommend, especially the video chats, even if it is outside of your category, that you check it out, because there's always some great advice offered no matter what category you're writing. And remember, if you are looking for more information about Pitch Wars, the best place is pitchwars.org. Thank you so much and have a good night.